Thanks, everyone. Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Nice to see so many familiar faces and great to see some new faces here as well. I'm Parisa Rosham with Thomas Safran and Associates. I'm here on behalf of the Veterans Collective. We are the PD team, the principal developer team. So we're very excited and honored to be here with you today to just give some quick updates on what we've been working on. Tess, let's dive into the next slide, please. So great to be sharing progress with you guys. Here's our roadmap, just to give you a sense of what we've accomplished, with some of our fellow developers on this campus. There are now actually 571 units that are completed. There are 196 units still currently under construction. We have 4 upcoming groundbreakings, which I know we're all very excited about. That's buildings 256, 300, 408, and 409. And obviously, once we complete those, we will use the proper addresses to refer to them, but for the time being, we use the building number. So we'll be breaking ground on 4 new projects later this year. In terms of lease-up, we'll delve into more details later in these slides, but there are 3 recently completed projects that are in lease-up or soon to be done with their lease-up processes. And there's a couple new Century projects that are almost done that have already started their lease-up process. As always, there are older buildings that exist that have vacant units. We're working very closely with VA to make sure that we fill those units as quickly as possible. In terms of ASIC and IIG, I believe when we updated you guys last year, we were speaking about some of the ASIC IIG funded improvements on the campus. Those connectivity and streetscape improvements are now all done. So that's great. And we're grateful for that extra funding source on this campus. As mentioned, we are in active pre-development on those 4, soon to be breaking ground. We've also been working extensively on phase 2 infrastructure. So I know, Stephanie, you asked a question a bit earlier about the different phases of VA's infrastructure projects. These are slightly different. So we also have a phase 2 infrastructure project. Phase 1 was the work completed on MacArthur. Phase 0 were the upgrades that we oversaw on Bonsall. Phase 2 is really focused on the massive infrastructure improvements required for the town center. So big thanks to the VA for being a great partner and helping us upgrade both the wet and dry utilities to serve all of these new buildings that are coming online, and the thousands of veterans, caseworkers, employees, family members, and guests who will be operating here at West LA VA. Fundraising, my colleague Lainey from US Vets will give an update a little bit later about the Veterans Promise campaign and how things are looking on that front. We continue to do advocacy related to VASH improvements. Tess has been working a lot on that front. And lastly, now that we've triggered the threshold for the minimum number of units for our Master Association to get started, we're in active talks with our partners on the Master Association to begin collecting CAM fees and putting new infrastructures in place so that we can serve all of these new residents and buildings that are coming. Tess will give a little bit more of an update about that later in the slide. Next slide, please. Tess.
Sorry about that. It's not responding.
I can stay on this one. Okay.
There we go.
Thanks,
Okay.
Tess. So this is more of a visual update, just so you guys can see. Sorry, Tess. Thank you. Here's more of a visual update, just so you can see the progress to date and kind of what's upcoming. So again, these are projects from us, the PD team, also from our partners at 205, 208, 209, and from the core companies projects up at MacArthur Field. So MacArthur Field 401B, Building 404, which is Century's project, and Building 701, which is a TSA project. All 3 of those are either early in lease-up or soon to be completely done with their lease-up processes. As mentioned, we still have a few projects that are under construction. There's Building 210, the Women's Preference Building that was referenced earlier. 156, 7, and 8 are the trio of buildings being built out by Century. That's the beautiful adaptive reuse that I think Andrew shared some photos earlier. And then 408, 409, 256, 300, we're very excited about these upcoming groundbreakings. 408 and 409 will be our first groundbreakings for the town center. I know the map is a little bit hard to see, but those are the 2 new construction projects that will be the first to go for the town center. Building 313, 407, and 410 in the town center will come a little bit later, but we're excited to get these 2 started. And then US Vets is rehabbing Building 300 and 256. So those are the 4 projects you see in yellow on the right-hand side. So with all of these projects that are completed, currently under construction, and soon to be under construction, we will already be at 1,065 units. And of course, there's hundreds more that we're working on with VA right now to put more into our pipeline, working out parcel release dates for future buildings. Let's go to the next slide, please. Many of you in this convening body and in others have heard us talking about the complexity of our capital stacks for these projects at West LA VA. Every project draws on a very diverse set of funding sources. As you can see here, it ranges from very hyper-local funding to very important philanthropic dollars. So as you can see, we've invested and have been able to raise millions of dollars to help us bring this master plan and bring this vision to life for West LA VA. And we are eager to continue this process with all of your support, with VA's partnership, to make sure that we continue to leverage these public and private dollars to build these much needed housing units and to build out this community that I know we so badly want to see here at West LA VA. So I will pause there and hand it off to my colleague Oscar, who represents Century Housing, and he will give you a couple of updates on recently completed Century buildings.
Hi everyone, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm Oscar Alvarado. I am with Century Housing, one of the members of the principal developer team. Happy to be here with you all today. I want to start out by talking to you about our Building 404 project, whose address is 11400 Vandergrift. This is the first project that Century has completed on the campus. We have built here 73 homes for veterans, mostly in studios with a handful of 1-bedroom apartments. The building was recently completed and is almost leased up. It has a plethora of spaces for veterans to enjoy. We have 3 full-time VASH case managers with offices on site, and we are hiring another 2 full-time case managers to provide services to residents who are on site. Tess, if you can go to the next slide. Really would like to just share with you all some of the slides of our work completed here at VA 404. These are some of the community spaces. As you all know, we really seek to create a warm residential feel to all of our buildings. These are some community spaces where folks can gather. Tess, if you want to keep going to the next slide. This slide is of a completed apartment. As you can see, the apartments have a full kitchen with a stove, oven, sink, and everything that residents need. The furniture shown here in the unit is all provided to the veterans as well. So the units come as you see them here in these photos. So far, we've gotten great feedback from residents on the apartments, the layout of the apartments, the space, and the furnishings and housewares that they've been provided as they move in. I think earlier it was discussed that our team works on getting welcome kits for every resident that comes into our buildings, and that includes basic housewares, plates, kitchen knives, spoons, and things that folks need to get going in their new home, linens, some cleaning supplies, and so on. Next slide, please. So this is just another set of photographs of the completed building. Again, we really do everything that we can to try to create warm, inviting spaces for the veterans and build in a high quality manner that will really stand the test of time. Next slide. So to date, we've moved in actually one more resident than is on this slide, 65 of 72 residents, and we're hoping to work our way through the last remaining move-ins to find ourselves at 100% occupancy here, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to Parisa to talk about another one of our completed projects.
Thanks, Oscar. So this is Building 402, also known as 701 MacArthur, not to be confused with the VA 402 on the South Campus. This was a recently completed project. This was our first modular project at this campus. We built 118 homes for veterans, and there are 2 manager units as well. Let's go to the next slide so I can tell a little bit more about modular. Sorry, actually, as you can see here, sorry, Tess, go back for 1 second. Many of you have seen these photos before, this rendering before. This was done as a garden style building. So it's 11 buildings side by side, delivering a total of 120 units with parking lots on the left and right hand side of the property. This is right by the core buildings up at the north tip of campus. We can go to the next slide. This is the primary entrance into community building ABC. This also has housing units in this main building. It's been really, really amazing to see so many veterans moving. We have 7 vacancies at this point, which we'll delve in a bit. Tess, next slide, please. This is more shots of the community room, and then you can see, because it's garden style, there's a lot of outdoor spaces, outdoor seating. This is one of the few properties on this campus that has 2 bedrooms. So that's a bit of a change from other buildings that are mostly studios and ones. We're really pleased to see veterans with families moving in. There are 4 children living at this property so far, including a 5-month-old baby. So it's a bit of a different feel from some of our other properties, and it's kind of wonderful to see this shifting demographic at West LA VA. Next slide, please. So this is the lease up update I was mentioning. We candidly, though it's been great to have some families move in, we have had a hard time filling all of the 2-bedroom units. We had a total of 13 2-bedroom units, 2 of them set aside for managers, which leaves us with 11 PSH. 7 of them are still vacant. So we've been working closely with the VA and with the county to try to think about creative solutions to help get more referrals approved. But this has been a challenge on the lease up front. We're still working through some active referrals, so hopefully those last few units will be filled up quickly. And that's it for me on this slide. I'm going to hand it back to Oscar.
Thank you, Parisa. So I'll walk the group through another one of our projects. This is our building 156, 157 project on campus, which just recently received its temporary certificate of occupancy. So final sign off from the county on all of our permits. We're very excited about that. We started the lease up process, have not yet begun moving veterans in, but we hope to do that in the first week of September. We're working through final punch list items with our general contractor, and we'll be furnishing the units next week. And as soon as we have done that, we'll begin moving our residents in. This property is renovation of 2 existing properties on the VA campus that had not been used for decades prior to our renovation. So we're really excited to bring life to these projects again and to see 110 units of veteran housing here as part of the project. We'll have 110 homes for veterans, and in addition, 2 homes for staff. Tess, if you can go to the next slide. This is just a before and after that we think is really telling of the work that and the transformation that is happening on campus. On the left, you see what the building was when we demolished it. You can kind of see its potential for a build out of a great common space for veterans who will live in the building and who will live in the community. And on the right, you see what it looks like today. So that's the renovated space, which will be a community room with big vaulted ceilings that mimic the original in the building, huge windows, amazing sunlight coming into the space. We're really looking forward to furnishing this space and having veterans make use of it. Tess, next slide, please. And it's just a series of photos on the exterior spaces. We really are looking forward to having veterans use these spaces as kind of an oasis away from anything and everything, and a recuperative space. We plan to amenitize these with some game areas like shuffleboard and bocce ball, and there'll be plenty of furnishings that go out here as well for folks to sit and be in. Next slide, please, Tess. So like I said, we are yet to move veterans into our building, but we will be doing so in the next couple of weeks. We've already started taking referrals, processing applications, have a handful of applications that are already approved. And you can see from the photos in this slide what the renovated building looks like in terms of the units themselves. So that is building 156, 157. And Tess, if you can go to the next slide. In this slide, I'll move on to building 158, which is a separate project from 156 and 7. If you look at the photo that is on the slide here at the bottom left, you can see that these three buildings that I've just talked about are in a shared single courtyard space. So going from left to right, those are buildings 156, 157 in the middle, and 158 on the right. Building 158 started construction about 6-7 months behind the other two buildings. It was financed as a distinct project, but we're really looking forward to completing that project as well by the end of this year, hopefully sooner, and begin to move residents into that project. This project will include 49 units for veterans, as well as VASH case management and case management that is paid by through cash flow by the principal developer team. You can go to the next slide, Tess. These are just shots of the building under construction. So maybe you can go to the slide after that, Tess. This shows you this one back. Can you go back one? There we go. This shows you a good sense of where the building is right now. You've got the units that are generally finished, very close to finished. And then we're working through the corridors and the common spaces. And then finally, we'll make our way to the exterior and work out those courtyards and landscaping and be complete with the project in the next couple of months. And hopefully by end of the year, be moving residents into the project. So I will go ahead and pass it on now for discussion on 210 to Tess.
Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be among so many familiar faces and meet new VCOEB members. I'm Tess Banco. I'm a Marine Corps veteran and have been working alongside the principal developer team since 2018, but at the VA campus for the past 9 years. So it's been quite an odyssey, and I'm happy to present to you Building 210. This building is under construction. There should be occupancy in March of 2026. One of the unique features about this building is its women veteran preference. This type of preference for women veterans has not yet been done on the campus, and it's very exciting, especially because of the community tie-in. The community of women veterans on the campus continues to grow, especially through the women's groups in the Peer Center and Women Vets on Point, which is a U.S. Vets program. So you can see here it's 38 units, so 37 of those are permanent supportive housing. 7 of these units are studios, and the remainder are 1-bedrooms. So again, very, very exciting to have women veteran engagement with the community as it grows, and also hopefully bringing their families as well. And here's some photos. You can see on the left side, the building is actually 3 colors in this photo. So it's just been tremendous every day on the campus to pass by and see this and know that it's intended for a population that hasn't yet had permanent housing aside from the regular housing at West LA VA. So it's just tremendous. All right, I'll go ahead and pass it to my colleague, Oscar.
Thank you. Can you advance the slide, Tess? Thank you. So just a quick update on some of the infrastructure improvements that the PD team has been leading and taking on. A couple of years back, our team was able to access state funding through 2 separate programs, one of which is ASIC, the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program, the other being what we call IIG, Infill Infrastructure Grant Program through the state Housing and Development and Community Development Department. And we've put together some improvements that are much needed for connectivity around the campus to the tune of about $19 million worth of work. And we are just about done with that work. We're doing some basic cleanup, making sure that our partners at VA are okay and ready to sign off on the work that has been complete out there, but it is generally complete, but for final sign off from all of the parties. The improvements include resurfacing of sidewalks and streets. We've installed some lighting and signage. We've created a mobility hub, which is a large building that we constructed to house bicycles for the residents of the community, especially those who will live in 157 through 158, and create a little space for them to work on their bikes as well. If you want to go to the next slide, Tess. In the next slide, you'll see some photos of some of the completed work. So again, you'll be able to see that we have done some bike paths, some pedestrian improvements, sidewalks, a fair amount of landscaping. And some of these improvements, like the bike path that you see there at the bottom, will make their way all the way out to the edge of the campus and terminate at a bus stop outside of the campus that houses Big Blue Bus transportation from the city of Santa Monica, and will allow veterans to easily access that, easily make their way to and from their home to the public transportation just outside of the campus. And again, all of these improvements were paid for with grants from the state of California, and our team managed these improvements. And I can go ahead and pass this back to Parisa to discuss a little bit about the town center.
Sure, thanks, Oscar. So you guys actually saw this in prior briefings that we've given you. I know there's been a lot of questions about the kind of amenities that we are proposing for these future spaces. So this slide has not changed. That having been said, we are working closely with VA, particularly those who are working and operating around the Peer Resource Center, conducting focus groups, surveys with veterans, so that we make sure that the proposed amenities are still what the veterans want and need on this campus. It's been an iterative process. I believe there's another focus group happening on the 28th that we're going to listen in on, just to make sure we're getting direct feedback from veterans themselves who are and enjoying these amenities. So 408 has some amenities coming up, so does 409. Building 13 and 306 are future adaptive reuse projects that will be undertaken by US Vets. Those will kick off at a slightly later date. But 408 and 409, like I said, those are the two properties that are breaking ground this fall. So those amenities should be online come 2028. So with that, we can go to the next slide, Tess, if that's okay. Just to give you guys a little bit of a closer look at what 408 is, and then Oscar will share about 409. So this will be a new construction building. It's currently a parking lot with solar panels. So we're excited to be taking this to a higher and better use than just parking. We will be building 101 total units. That includes 1 unit set aside for our manager. Every one of our buildings has 1 full manager living on site. Of course, this is entirely focused on unhoused, unsheltered veterans. And I'll leave it at that for now. Oscar can give you a quick look at VA 409 in the next slide.
Thank you, Parisa. This is our VA 409 project, which was also in the town center that Parisa shared. Like Building 408, this project is fully funded and set to start construction in the 4th quarter of this year. We are working swiftly through coordination with the VA and county departments for permits to get ourselves ready to go. But the project is fully funded and will begin construction this fall. 409 contains 117 homes for veterans. And of course, we will have case management in the way of VASH staff, as well as some of our own case management staff that will work on site. We'll have lots of amenity spaces for the veterans who will live here, like we do in our other projects, sizable community rooms, conference rooms, and office space for all who will work there. We're really excited about this one. I'll go ahead and pass this back on to Tess. Next slide.
Building 256 is another adaptive reuse. I don't like to call it a project, but adaptive reuse building. 41 units with 1 manager. So construction should start in 2025. Right now, we're really reviewing the sublease documents and plan to close financing in November. But like other buildings, of course, case management, every building has VASH case management. Principal developer team buildings have wraparound services, so additional support in addition to that VASH case management, and things like substance abuse, which I know I didn't outline very much in the Building 210 slide, but there is also access to the full range of US vets and partner organizations services as well. So that can be expected in this building. And I will go ahead and move on now to Building 300. This building is very special. So first I'll go through the housing portion of it. It's adaptive reuse as well, 44 units with one manager, so 43. Homeless veterans, you can see the funding sources in progress. As we discussed previously, there are various different funding sources that go into this. We currently have a fully executed commitment agreement, and we're also reviewing the rest of the sublease documents. So financing should close around August 29th. But we're still waiting on HCD to give us some feedback as well. So for the residential portion of Building 300, the services will include the VASH case management, of course, but as I mentioned, the wraparound staffing. So veteran services coordinator, peer support, of course, in conjunction with the very awesome new peer center, access to behavioral and physical health programming. So there will be substance use support. Building 300, which we'll discuss more in the next slide, will also house the security hub and will be the integrated well-being center for the campus. So these are carefully coordinated services, services like food bank support. There's actually going to be a full food bank on the West LA VA campus. The legal services, which will work with community partners. And of course, the first stop is always VA services and what is existing in the VA system for these types of coordinations and implementations. A workforce center, a coffee shop, which we've been in talks with BCS about operating, and then of course the community spaces and services partnerships that I'll go over in a second. It's got a wide range of building service staffing, but again, being the first kind of mixed use integrated well-being center, there certainly will be a lot more staff on the ground in this building. So you can see here a layout of the well-being center and the contemplated services and amenities. So again, these are contemplated, much like the town center services and amenities, or community serving amenities, as I'll call them. It's a result of multiple years of feedback from veterans, including the most recent direct survey of residents, which was the first because we hadn't had residents on the campus before, but certainly all of the Federal Register feedback, in-person discussions with veterans that are ongoing on a constant basis. So these are the contemplated services currently, of course, clinical services outside of the VASH model, but in complement. So it's in addition to, not instead of, the workforce/business center lab area. This is envisioned to be a smaller workforce lab. The VCS coffee shop, barber and beauty, which is very important. There's certainly amenities around the campus, but to have veterans able to access this in the neighborhood is tremendous. The food bank, which will be a West Side Food Bank. Events, activities, groups, again, in conjunction with VA, community partners, which we'll talk more about. I'm excited to share with you about the Community Alliance. Case management, telehealth services, SSVF support that fills those gaps and cracks. And we're so grateful for our partners in those arenas. Peer mentoring, the clothing room, which is also a very important component. Again, being adjacent to Brentwood and Westwood, wonderful in many respects, but can be challenging for affordability for residents on the campus. And then VA space, where VA will come and occupy space in the building to co-provide services and amenities alongside the principal developer team. Going into Building 13/306, which is in the town center. And let me just back up a little bit and give you a little bit more information about the town center. The community plan defines the town center as multi-use, so it's an urban place, but it is also anchored by this building. The vision is Building 13 being the town hall. So in regards to that, this building would be adaptive reuse with 25 units and one manager. homeless veteran population. The discussions are ongoing regarding what types of services would be in this building, but the vision certainly is having things like the bike repair shop and bike storage, a full, VCS canteen, restaurant, maker spaces for crafting. There's so much going on the campus, and veteran residents are so engaged. I can tell you, being immersed in the community every single day, meeting with residents and just talking to them, being around the community, they really are excited for community serving amenities. So Healthy Teaching Kitchen would be a component of this, a market, and other partnerships as previously discussed, of course, with Building 300, but very deliberately laid out. And the town center between Building 13 and 300 would be connected through a historic walkway path, so a bike and walking path, which further underscores, mixed use as a best practice, which it is in community development. One caveat being, having the most community input that you can get into the plans, which we are actively trying to do alongside VA. So happy to present Building 13 to you. I'll go ahead and pass this over to my colleague, Lainey.
Good, afternoon now, almost. I'm Lainey Kapkin. I work at US Vets and also support the external engagement efforts of the Veterans Collective since the project's inception. I wanted to harken back to the Veterans First mission that we all have in opening this slide. From the start of this project, we have felt that it's not just VA, it's not just our government partners that need to put veterans first, but also our community. And so the Veterans Promise campaign has really been an effort to show the robustness of our public-private partnership, to show that Angelenos are committed to our veterans, to this one-of-a-kind land and its purpose, particularly as it becomes a gateway for our upcoming Olympics. We really want the campus and its historic buildings and our services to reflect the care we have for the veterans that live there. So I'm pleased to say we have brought more than $100 million in private support to the project. That is more than 10%, $105 billion of the $1 billion in total that we as a team have leveraged for the project in partnership with VA, in partnership with all levels of government, and thankfully in partnership with the community. You can see that there are corporations, foundations, faith communities, and many private citizens that are included in that tally. From a priority perspective, we really looked at the project's key needs. Our first priority was community planning, followed by veteran housing. Filling the gap in every veteran housing unit was our first priority, first and foremost, and you can see that those funds are complete. Today, we focus on the supportive service spaces that ranges, and multi-use spaces that ranges from the buildings that anchor the campus, the Wadsworth Chapel, Building 13, Building 300, to all of the multi-use spaces in the town center and throughout the campus to create the vibrant community that we all envision together. I turn it over to my next colleague, I think back to Tess. Is that right?
Daryl.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Daryl Vincent. Some of you I've met, some of you I've not. I'm the president and CEO of US Vets. I succeeded Steve in January. Very big shoes to fill, but I've been with the organization for the last 22 years, 14 of which is as the chief operating officer. I want to first just say thank you to the colleagues that just presented. And in addition to the partnership with them and the partnerships with the VA and even the partnership with this body, that's a lot of information. I'm quite sure everybody has a lot to download at this point. I think it's important that these partnerships with subject matter expertise, including the VA's partnership, is important to me. But I think we all can agree that the partnership that's most important is the partnership and the alliance that we built with the veterans. So rather than me read every slide, because I know you have a lot to do, I just want to kind of give you a macro philosophical approach that we're having at the campus that we use across many of our campuses, that is a proven method that in no means that it's the only model. It just means the model we're choosing to integrate to ensure that veterans don't have what we continue and say call housing, but creating homes, and making sure that people are not just getting one-time help, but lifetime of care, and make sure we're not putting people into just jobs, but actually into careers if people are getting back to work. And the only way we feel that is one of the best models to do that is coming from a therapeutic approach. The therapeutic community created has to come from the staff first facilitating that process. As people start coming into our programs, so I think we have over 2 years now of people living on campus. It takes a while for people to become what we call older residents. And when I mean older, I do not mean age. I mean older in how many people, how long have they been there? So when people are coming in, they have that peer support, which I know we get from the community as well. But the people that are inside these great buildings that I'm seeing and all the amenities that are coming and all the things that people can now have access to so they can have a great opportunity to make good choices. But it doesn't mean anything without the people feeling safe, feeling a bond, and feeling a sense of ownership. One of our values at US Vets and with this partnership is to prioritize our partnerships. And we want to make sure that the partnership with the VA, because you do what we don't do, and that's a subject matter expert. And we want to augment that. And then we have our partners that do things that we don't do. And if we put that all together, we build an environment with the veterans that not only feel like they're being served in housing, but they're actually creating a home. It is their home. We're merely there to provide services and facilitate and empower the changes that they want to make. And the only way we need to know how to do that is ensuring they have a sense of belonging, that they understand that these services are there for them. But the most important thing for all of us is to have accountability and responsibility. I know sometimes we skirt away from that. Our partnership does not skirt away from. The responsibility is not only at the VA's level, it's not only at the community level, it's not only at our level, but it's also equally at the veteran level, and we all do our part, and no one role is more important than the other, just a different delegation of duty. So we continue to do the TC model to collaborate with the Department of Veteran Affairs, obviously, with the residents, helping veterans. I know this is not a new concept, but when living in such a permanent housing setting, when it's not transitional housing, where things are a little bit more mandated in transitional housing, set time, these are the things you do, it takes a different approach of bringing people along and saying, although you are not technically required to do these things of getting involved in the community, we encourage you to do that, but obviously doing the clinical techniques of how we do engagement, which we're used to. Next slide. So I think many of us know, it slipped back. Many of us know that we got awarded a BASH contract on many of the buildings, EULs. We're working collaboratively with the VA on those case management services, making sure that we have the proper staff with their licenses, the VA pointed out earlier, making sure we integrate the peer support, the wellness checks, making sure they have the values of the relationship. And we truly believe that it all is going to start with making sure that the veterans empower themselves with us helping and doing that approach. I'm not saying this is utopia. Obviously, this takes time. And the many campuses that we have across the nation, I say anywhere between 2 to 5 years it takes us to start getting that TC working, where it's becoming like a clock, where people are getting up and doing things and helping each other, supporting each other. And what it does, it protects the property at the same time. I know a lot of people talk about the safety and security and protecting the property, the equipment, and the buildings. Our partnership is not just the buildings and campuses and the offices, the people that are serving and being served on there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. And it's not just about their technical expertise, it's more about their heart and how do they give back to those communities in which they live in. Creating a community feel along with the VA, along with our partners, along with the community, along with the veterans, means that there will be problems. It's not who's to blame, it's who takes responsibility. It's how do we prevent those problems? How do we foresee these problems? How do we make sure that people are helping each other so that when a relapse does happen, when something happens that may be a fight that you don't want to occur, what peers are addressing this? Who's been there long enough to take responsibility of it so the building stays in great conditions? So people walk on and they feel proud of what they're doing. When people are entering recovery programs or VASH because they have high acuity or mental health and or drug addiction or just common everyday life, they need to feel a sense of non-punishment and a sense of belonging about coming here, and when I do make a mistake, I can talk to somebody about it. Or if I do make a mistake, I'm ready to be accountable for it. Or when I do make a mistake, I have veterans around me that are going to support me. That does not mean it works for everyone, but you want the majority to be able to do that and bring each other along. Our team, the principal developers, are very, you just heard a lot of information on the buildings. I'm so impressed with how they look. I went on campus so many times, and I'm so impressed in all the work that all of you are doing to make those things come about. But I'm equally impressed when we talk to the veterans and they're able to talk to us about how the community's being built and how they feel at home. Does that mean that everyone is satisfied? No. That's why you continue to do surveys, you continue to engage, you continue to get ideas, and you be transparent about what you can do and what you can't do. The best thing, people, when they don't want to tell the truth about something, they're doing that for themselves, not for the other person. I believe transparency, being vulnerable with the veterans and understanding what the expectations are inside and outside of the agency is the best way to do it. It doesn't mean that we can get to everything. It just means that we'll take every effort. It doesn't mean we can solve every problem. So what we can promise, though, they don't have to walk through those problems alone. Next slide. And we talked about this before in a meeting about the safeties. I know that's I think it's a very important topic. We like to talk about safety and security. We like to talk about to make sure people are feeling safe, which is a very subjective thing. There are many differences in people feeling safe on what they consider to be safe. What does that mean? For us, it means is giving a philosophical approach that's not only aspirational, but it's operational. That means obviously we want to have physical safety of just making sure that people are not being harmed. We want to prevent those things. On the many campuses we have across the nation with permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, emergency housing, with very high acuity vets, we have very little physical altercations when it comes to this. I'm not saying never at all, but very little. And a lot of that prevention comes from the camaraderie of when you walk in this, you know it's not something that's tolerated. I am coming to a place that I don't need to do that. That's not what I need to do. I can find alternatives to how to handle that. Again, and when it does happen, how do you handle it? How do we address it? How do we prevent it? So we want to intercede early and do prevention and intervention from a very caring place. But caring does not mean you're not accountable. I'm a firm believer, and we are a firm believer as a team. We have accountability through support. You don't have to be authoritarian, but you can make sure that things get done in a supportive manner. Obviously, psychological safety not only goes for the veterans, but it goes for the staff and the host community. A lot of times we focus on the partnership with the community, focus on a partnership with each other. I think it's equally important to say we have a partnership with the frontline staff. The way we treat the mid-management is the way they're going to treat the frontline staff. The way the frontline staff treat is the way they're going to treat the veterans. So if we're not caring about the people doing the work day to day and ensuring that they feel safe, and ensure that they're getting their needs met, the veterans won't get their needs met. It doesn't mean one more is important than the other. It means that's how you show your care. Everyone has a caseload. So the higher up you go, your caseload is the staff. And as you work your way down the food chain or the structure, just like in the military, of hierarchy, now your job is to take care of that person on the ground floor that's really doing that work, who's then taking care of those that are there to get the help. So it's really important that people feel psychological safety, then they can come to people, talk to people, and feel they're not going to be judged. One of the biggest things of veterans seeking care is just being judged, making sure that they don't feel that they have to feel like I have to be something that I'm not. And then obviously the campus and site having safety so people can feel safe walking in their own community. I think all of us live in a community, we want to feel safe. We want to walk out our doors and feel like that we can interact with people and not be in harm's way. I think we need to destigmatize homelessness and consider it veterans experiencing homelessness versus homeless veterans. That is not all they are. That's not all they will be. That's not all they ever been. They're veterans experiencing homelessness that happen to come to us for care. And we're providing a place that's safe, but we're surrounding around care that they choose to access so they can make great choices. That's the therapeutic approach and safety philosophy in a macro sense. There's a lot of more details, but I know you've gotten a lot of information here. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to pass it to my colleague Tess, who I believe that has one of the most important parts of the presentation, because we talk about this on the campus, but the actual community surrounding it with so much discord there was before and all the things that are going on with different opinions about who should do what and how they do what. One of the biggest and hardest things we need to do is make sure we destigmatize and understand that we have to integrate the community. It's not just the government's responsibility, a community responsibility, not just the veteran responsibility. We all play a role. And if we play that role and understand each other's expertise through the community, I think we'll have a great philosophy and a great campus that we can be proud of. I'll pass it to my colleague Tess now.
Thank you, Daryl. Part of the principal developer team's therapeutic philosophy has been creating a backbone. And those are structures that undergird the partnership with VA and the partnership with residents. I included a chart on the right-hand side that talks a little bit about the Veterans Collective, 501c3 backbone, and the Master Association Board, which is the partnership not just between the principal developer team, but when the developer team was conceived of, working alongside the two other developer and services teams on the campus, and of course, alongside VA. So that master association that serves to undergird all of the wonderful community activities and care of the community, the stewardship of the community really, that's ongoing, has been implemented and continues to move forward with things like the CAM fee, the common area maintenance fee, that will allow for developer teams to work together on these community centers to ensure that they're safe, properly run, properly resourced, and we all are using the information and the feedback, especially from the North Campus residents. So you can see on the right-hand side, campus residents, there are now campus advisory councils across many of the buildings. Some of them are so new that they are just informative stages. It's been a tremendous honor to work alongside those councils and meet their leaders, very passionate veterans in the communities and community leaders, some of whom are on this call today. So I just wanted to say hello and thank you so much for everything that you're bringing to your community and that leadership. We also started a little over a year ago now, a neighborhood alliance. And so that actually is 26 partners. And it doesn't just include the community partners, it also includes property management and services and resident council veteran advisors who join the group too. So that group is structured really to bring everyone together. VA leadership also attends as well. We've had, Sally and Mr. Merchant and Adam Strain, and we have different working groups, including report outs from a veteran engagement working group and the nutrition working group that you heard about today. And really it's, collaborating with everyone to make sure that we are getting appropriate feedback. We're letting the community, discuss issues that are of importance across the board. We're coordinating on events and resources. We're looking at places where we need something and trying to source it from each other or find a way to get it. So I think it's a very powerful collaborative group that employs collective impact in the best ways possible. And then of course, working with all West LA VA community and services partners. So the neighborhood is surrounded by subject matter experts, VA experts who are there, resources that are there, things coming out of patient experience office and VA homeless programs and GLA, the sections at GLA and the tremendous staff who work there. It's very exciting to begin to see the synergy that Daryl described start coming to fruition and be shaped, and especially with direct veteran input. So there's been joint coordination with VA, community providers, and continuing via the Community Alliance. The safety and security working groups that were ongoing at GLA really were wonderful in escalating issues and creating working groups to look at different problem areas together, engaging different groups again across the board to be able to work on those issues together and providing the direct resident feedback as well. We created a community accessible resource library. Sometimes there are challenges with working across different tools. VA, for instance, has a system where you would have to be badged to access different tools. Unfortunately, in protecting systems, there are barriers created for the end user, which is our true north and are the veterans that we serve. So we created a community accessible resource library that anyone, VA staff, veteran, community member, wider community member can use and look at and have in the palm of their hand through QR code, where are these resources at? We have collaboration with veterans, VA, the County Military and Veterans Affairs, Jim Zenner, who I know is part of VCOEB, and we collaborated on the Peer Community Center. We're part of the steering committee on that. Some of that actually arose out of a tremendous event. I'll say it's tremendous, but it is really one of the lowest barriers lowest barriered events on the campus. And we found that repeating an event week after week on the same day, on the same time, rain or shine, really engaged the veteran residents and let them know that we were serious about being there for them. So VA sections take part, A unique feature of it is even on federal holidays, we operated, it's actually called the Bunker Social, but we operated that across 8 federal holidays. We provide a meal, veterans come, there's a veteran band. So there are innovative efforts such as, Bunker Social and the Peer Center that are ongoing, and it's really exciting collaboration. And I can say, witnessing firsthand, I think veterans appreciate it just from the feedback that I've heard directly. And collaboration with veterans, VA, others. We know there are several key issues on the campus: transportation, the food question, the food provision, which the Nutrition Working Group has been absolutely wonderful in the food hub that's now in existence. They've also given out emergency food boxes that veterans are able to come and access. There is a PDT, Interim Services Center. So it's a smaller bungalow across from Building 300. We really have, what exists in the future plans and the current state, and we're all working together to meet the current state's needs. So the food hub's an example of that. Peer Center is an example of that. And working together and sharing resources is a really important part of structuring the neighborhood in the interim before, the major centers come online, and we're able to collaborate through that. Moving into the next slide, the community-wide services and amenities programs. There is, as I mentioned, a community-wide slate of campus events, supportive offerings. CVCE is involved. Again, that neighborhood alliance allows us to collaborate on events, bring resources. I may have some funding for a community event. Another community partner has some funding as well. We pool it all. Over the past year, we have held at least 4 large community events, each of those serving around 350. And that's just the principal developer team. That's not even CVCE, whose regular events also attract a lot of veterans on the campus. I mentioned Bunker Social already. It's served over 1,800 veterans every Monday since last April. The Community Alliance, an annual events calendar, getting everyone on the same page, coordinating community partnerships and initiatives. Really exciting partners, LA Dodgers. A group of peers just went out to box seats at the Dodgers game to honor their tremendous hard work serving veterans in the community. LA Public Library has provided books for the different housing units. There's just been an ongoing list of really tremendous public partnerships and an outpouring of support for the community. Community serving amenity planning, again, based on veteran feedback in conjunction with VA and non-VA providers, because those community serving amenities are not only intended for the veterans who live on the campus, but also for the wider regional community of about, I believe it's 200,000 veterans who live in Los Angeles County. An important piece of our work, I do want to mention and just call out, the vetting of the services and amenities partners is really important. Being on the ground and working as the community development director for the collective, there have been many instances of different groups and entities trying to kind of find out how to engage with the veteran residents. So we are very protective of residents. And I know working alongside planning, Andrew Strain and VA, you all share similar concerns. I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is what is possible when you engage with identity, mission, meaning, and purpose. And that's what I'm seeing across the campus as veterans are coming in to be housed. I mean, we host an informational table every Monday where a veteran can just come up and ask any question or express any need. And somebody in that event is able to find them immediate assistance, walking them over to the Peer Center, referring them to different VA programs. So it's just been really tremendous to watch the community grow. And with that, I will go ahead and hand off for Q&A.
I have a few questions. I can start if you want. Can I ask that you stop sharing so that we can see everybody? It's just a little bit easier. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have 2 questions, I guess. My first question is for you, Parisa. You made a comment about challenges in filling some of the 2-bedroom units. I'd really love for you to expand on that a little bit and share with the board what the challenges have been and how you are addressing those challenges.
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. So as mentioned, VA Building 701 MacArthur has a total of 13 two-bedroom units. 11 of them are PSH for formerly unhoused veterans. 7 of them are currently vacant. One of the challenges with all of our projects is that there are so many layers of funding with so many requirements that sometimes it feels like we're looking for a unicorn to fill an individual unit. So for example, some of these 2 bedrooms have a 30% AMI. Somebody has to have a severe mental illness. One of them is a mobility, sensory communication unit. And then on top of that, there's an occupancy requirement that there has to be 3 people in the household in order to qualify for the unit. So as you can imagine, across the universe of unhoused veterans that we're trying to house here, there are not a ton of people who meet all of these different criteria to be able to have an approved application to move into these units. So I'm grateful to the county supervisor's office, Amy Perkins, who I hope is on this call right now. She is aware and she's been trying to help us think creatively about how to work with LACTA to hopefully get some relief on this issue. Unfortunately, nothing has been worked out as of yet, but we are trying to think creatively about, greater outreach, about potential relief on, namely the occupancy requirement, or just seeing what our options are. One way that we have been able to fill other 2-bedroom units is by applying for accommodation request for a veteran who has a caregiver. However, this is not always approved. So that's one way we hopefully can fill units in the future. If somebody has a permanent live-in caregiver, not a short-term caregiver, they wouldn't meet the 3-person occupancy requirement, but we're hopeful there will be some relief for cases like that. So I hope I answered your question. It's a challenge, and we're looking to our government partners to help us solve it.
Can I ask one follow-up question? Can you remind me, can we put 2 vouchers in one unit or no? Like if 2 people are vouchered separately, can like me and you be roommates in a
Yeah, I've asked that
2-bedroom
question,
unit?
and my understanding is no, we cannot do that. But we've explored that in the past, but at this time, no, we can't move in like roommates. That's not the model that's been approved here.
Okay, that's really helpful.
But it's
Thank
something to
you.
keep in mind, in terms of future advocacy efforts. It's something that we should, revisit again. VA Building 408, which TSA is starting construction on in October, there are 3 2-bedrooms in that building. So hopefully 3 will be easier to fill, but to your point, Stephanie, it's something we should look at for future advocacy efforts.
If there's something that this board can do, not in the advocacy space, but obviously, but maybe we can request that the county come and talk to us at one of our future meetings to give information on this topic. I think it'd be really helpful. I see someone came off mute and I feel like maybe it's Amy Perkins. And I just want to, Amy, are you there?
I think she may be tied up, so
yeah, I think she was at jury duty today, so I'm not sure, but for VA folks, I don't have a second question, but it's more of a comment and something that I was going to say before the development team started. There's always been this question about right sizing the unit count at the VA. And I think that we really need to think through that, especially in this executive order process, that we're thinking through some of these challenges to address populations that are not just SMI and not just PSH units. There are a number of veterans that need housing in a place like LA County, students included. And I think that the VA really needs to be responsible about finding the right solutions for the whole of the veteran population. And obviously, I don't expect anybody to have comment on that because unit count is tied up in a lawsuit and also in this executive order. But that was my real comment to Dr. Davis, to you when you were answering some of Kara's questions. Just to be, I would love to see the VA be thoughtful about housing solutions and also see the VA working with the principal development team on some of these issues. The one that Parisa brings up is a really, really serious issue. And the fact that we haven't figured out collectively how to get folks into 2-bedroom units, I think is actually kind of crazy. So I appreciate your work on this, Parisa, and the supervisor's office for trying to address the issue and being able to identify it and educate us on what that issue is.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Just say, Stephanie, that you raise a good question about looking comprehensively in the executive order, as was mentioned earlier. There are different populations and different services mentioned, and you raise a very good point. And we are very, very cognizant of what's in there and how we respond. And I would urge everybody who's involved in any way to also read it very carefully and think forward. So thank you for that comment.
Before we go to Dr. Nwajaku, I want to just check in with Mr. Canfield. I know he had a question previously. Mike, do you still have something?
I do, yes. Hi. My questions were really back with the GLA. Can I backtrack a little bit?
Sure.
Great. Sally, are you still on? Did we lose Sally?
She's here.
Sally, hi. When you were talking about the return to homelessness, you mentioned a number of 65 veterans of a count of 1,832. I think it was like 3.5%, if I recall.
Correct. Can you hear me, Mike?
Guys, can you still hear me?
You broke up for a second.
Yeah, that's what I get for taking it from the office instead of my home. But then you'd hear barking dogs and lawnmowers. So, Sally, a question about the return to homelessness. Still there?
We can hear you.
Okay, so the number you mentioned was 65 of 1,832. I assume that's GLA wide, not just, it's got to be GLA wide, right? Do you have similar numbers for the West LA campus? How many residents have returned to homelessness?
So those numbers encompass all of those that may have been in EULs that have fallen out of housing. But I think it's important to note, while property management keeps that information about evictions, just because someone is evicted from their housing on campus doesn't mean that they lose their voucher or that they are no longer a part of our HUD-VASH program. So for example, property management has been really collaborative in ensuring, if we can, we move from mutual termination versus eviction, so that individual might be able to use a voucher, a tenant-based voucher, perhaps in another area. I don't have those numbers broken out by on campus, Mike, but it does incorporate those numbers.
I think that would be interesting information just to kind of understand, of the residents on campus, how stable is that housing? How many of those folks are cycling out of the housing for whatever reason?
Thank you for that question.
Okay. Let's see, one more question. And again, for you, Sally, and again, this is just you remember 2 years ago when I couldn't find the classroom on the first day of school, you helped me, and I'm still trying to understand some of these nomenclatures here. But you talked about, under the by name list, 1,494 on the by name list. Of those, 1,013 were sheltered and 484 were unsheltered. Can you remind me again, the 1,013 sheltered? What does that mean? What does sheltered mean?
Sure. So sheltered homelessness means they are staying in an emergency shelter, an interim housing placement, or a transitional housing placement. So for example, we still consider individuals homeless if they're living in an emergency shelter. So like CTRS is considered sheltered homelessness. New Directions on our campus, our GPD program is considered sheltered homelessness. Unsheltered homelessness are those who are living outdoors, living in their cars, living in encampments.
Great. And so just a reminder, so we've got 1,494 veterans that fall within one of those two categories. And I think you mentioned there are about 1,800 vouchers for use in the GLA, primarily, I think you said tenant-based, is that right?
Yes, the majority of the vouchers that we have about 84% utilization in our project-based vouchers that we have. So I would say the majority are tenant-based vouchers, yes.
Okay, so again, just back to the numbers, 1,494 currently on the by name list, of which I think we've got, remind me here, trying to find the right numbers, about 484 new units coming online at the West LA campus. That's the stuff that's either under construction or still in planning. So about another 484 plus some number of the 497 are not currently leased. It looked like maybe about 10% of those. So maybe another 10, maybe another 50 units. So about 530 eventual vacant units, if you will, at the West LA campus.
I might not be as quick as my math as you are, Mike.
I'm again, private sector developers just trying to focus on supply and demand here. So demand feels like about 1,500 units, and we've got supply just at the West LA of about 500 units, plus or minus. So sort of unmet demand for shelter, for permanent shelter of about 1,000 units, if I'm doing my math right.
So I want to make sure I'm understanding, because I thought you were maybe going toward do we have enough vouchers to house our veterans on our by name list, which, you know, the answer would be yes, if you're looking at vouchers. We would, you know, certainly not everyone that's on our by name list wants to live on our campus. And so we work with landlords and use those tenant-based vouchers. In fact, there's lots of developers around our campus, not actually on our campus, that are developing units that our tenant-based vouchers could be used.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate the insight on those numbers. I think it'll come up. I think it'll help inform our recommendation. Part of our recommendation is talking about the unit count at the West LA campus. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't seen some of these numbers, so I want to make sure I understand them as we get into that discussion later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I was lost on the first day of school too, so don't feel bad.
Thanks. That's all I have, Chief. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Sorry, you're not on my screen. Dr. Nwajaku?
Hello, good morning. I'm Patricia Washwaku. I'm one of the board members. Thank you all for the great presentation. So I have two questions, and one is a request for a reminder about how veterans who come up for housing are selected for, or how are they sort of, I don't know if I would use the word assigned to the various housing units that are available. So what does that process look like? Can I just get just a reminder on that? And then the second question is, if, for example, there's a veteran who has dependents, so children, we discussed, or I think I heard in one of the buildings, there's about 5 children that are in that particular unit or in that particular building. So my question along those lines has to do with, if someone has a dependent or multiple dependents, how again is the selection determined in terms of what units they would go into? It sounds like there's limited availability for multiple bedroom units. So are there occupancy limits? So if it's a 1 bedroom, there can only be a certain number of children within that unit, or not. So I just wanted to get some clarity on that.
Thank you. I'll start with the first one. The first question about how it sounded like it was maybe like, how are veterans matched to units? How do we determine where they're going to be? And this starts all the way from identification of a veteran when that veteran is placed on our by name list. So if someone is experiencing unsheltered homelessness, we have a variety of access points around the LA County area. And VA staff, along with our partners that are part of one team, so that could be a peer specialist at LA County Military and Veteran Affairs. It could be an SSVF grantee who's conducting outreach. It can be a contractor. Veterans are given what we call a housing choice form, and immediately we determine whether or not they're a candidate for SSVF rapid rehousing, or whether or not the individual may be interested in one of our existing project-based vouchers, either here on campus or elsewhere. And veterans usually identify their top 3 choices, and we assign them a case manager or a point of contact that's identified on our by name list. And then we work with each individual veteran. And that could be we, meaning VA, or one of our partners in one team could take the lead on that case management to determine where veterans wish to reside. We tend to over-refer to units because we want to make sure that we can, we don't have units sitting empty. But much like the community, we don't hold units for individuals. We try to move people along through that process as quickly as possible. And certainly all of those that are living on our campus here in West LA are working with a case manager, and they've identified their housing preferences. Does that help?
Yes, that does. That helps. So I guess in some way, just a follow on to that question, working with the case manager, they're able to see the units, the locations, and things like that, what's available, and then make that selection. Does it get that granular for them, or do
It
they
does.
just? Oh,
It does. And usually they're case managers based on what their preferences are. If they qualify for a 1-bedroom, they will look at the 1-bedrooms available. And they'll have a housing navigator or a peer specialist that will take them to view that unit. Some veterans choose to do that on their own if they have lower intensity case management needs. But certainly our teams are prepared to be able to show those units. We also have lease-up events that occur, and those are, we have a couple coming up in September here on campus where many veterans will be a part of those lease-up events for the EULs. Similarly, we will showcase units in the community and often take multiple veterans to see units at the same time.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question had to do with occupancy limits per unit.
And could you please repeat your second question for me? I want to make sure I captured it. Okay.
Sure, no, that's fine. So it was just to know, are there occupancy limits per unit? I know the question came up before about roommates and that more than one voucher can't be used, but this is a little different. So if, let's say I was a mother and I had, 3 children and I wanted to live in one of the buildings, how would that process be navigated? Because it seems like we've been speaking a lot about, individuals, or as I'm hearing, maybe people with, I don't know how many children. Of the 5 that are living in one of the buildings, I'm not sure how many adults they're associated with, but how are the occupancy limits determined in those situations? And then 2, what housing units are available for people who may have a larger or more children or dependents that need to be housed?
Yes, thank you for that. The Public Housing Authority establishes the occupancy limits. And so in their requirements, you'll see oftentimes, for example, no more than 2 adults or up to 2 in a studio apartment. You may see those specifically on the Public Housing Authority websites. Our 2 main housing authorities that we work with here on campus are the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles and the County of Los Angeles. So LACDA and HACLA are the 2 that we work with. So you'll see those limits, those occupancy limits. And then if someone could use a bigger unit, but they don't qualify for, let's say, that unit that they're looking for, they would request a reasonable accommodation through the housing authority. So for example, your question about families, that usually wouldn't be a reasonable accommodation. Usually those individuals are using tenant-based vouchers and they're living in the community. While we do have some families here on campus, we also have veterans who may require a caregiver. And so perhaps that veteran only qualifies for a studio or 1-bedroom apartment, but because they have a caregiver or because they have large medical equipment, they can file for a reasonable accommodation through the Public Housing Authority to be able to obtain a larger unit.
Thank you. That's actually helpful. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Hey,
Thank you,
everyone.
Sally. Any other questions from the board?
I do. Sorry, my raise hand function doesn't work either. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. This is Nicole Branca. I have a couple comments and a question to the conversation about the PHAs. I don't know if this is common knowledge, but public housing authorities have to do an annual plan every year, and they are required to have public comment period. So that is an excellent opportunity to weigh in for those in the LA area to to request change the occupancy standards. Also, we have 2 housing authorities in New York, and one of them did relax their standards a couple years ago and has made move-ins a lot faster for families of varying composition. So if anyone's interested, I'm happy to connect them to somebody at the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. And then I had a question about the referrals. I'm wondering if one of the other challenges to filling those 1, 2, I don't know if they're 3-bedroom, but the larger size units could be that the places where veteran families are significantly different than the places where single veterans are. And so I'm curious who you're doing the outreach with, and if that's something we could be helpful with the brainstorming.
Teresa, I know that you and the team have been doing a lot in this space. Did you want to start, or somebody from your team, regarding the outreach, or would you like me to take that?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was directed at me. So you're suggesting to work more closely with the housing authorities I'm sorry, could you repeat if there's a specific question you'd like me to address? I'm happy to share more about what our advocacy has been to date, but we haven't focused on something like what you were describing. Sure. The first part I was talking to was more of I was providing information. If you didn't know that there is this opportunity for input from the public on the PHA plan annually. So if that's helpful, if there are a number of people who wanted to weigh in publicly and request a change, that there's a vehicle to do so. And then I offered if anybody wants to talk to the New York City Housing Authority, which recently relaxed their occupancy standards. For some reasons, I'd be happy to make that connection. Yeah, I would love to learn. I mean, we're always looking for lessons learned from other jurisdictions or even other VA UL programs like ours about what's worked somewhere else that we could apply here in LA. So I would love that, Nicole. Thank you.
Okay, be happy to follow up. And then the other question, the actual question part of what I was saying was around referral sources for families, because I know that they tend to be different than single places where we would source single veterans for housing.
Referral sources, meaning whom are we reaching out to in order to find potential residents? So that may be a question for Sally. Actually, I can just say for TSA and for the PD team, we have a lengthy list of, at this point, hundreds of organizations, both local and as of late across the country, that we're reaching out to make it known that we do have these beautiful furnished housing units here at West LA VA, and we would love to welcome them and families where appropriate to come and reside in our properties. So we've broadened our outreach. Obviously, we started hyperlocal and we've broadened our outreach. I think with the upcoming lease-up processes, maybe broadening our outreach would be a best practice to apply here, given the challenges that we've seen with the lease-up. So, you know, for the Century team and for the US Vets project that's finishing up next year, Building 210, I think taking a more strategic and, you know, casting a wider net would hopefully help us fill the buildings a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Nicole, and thank you for your offer just about following up with PHAs. You know, interestingly, we do not have a lot of families on our by name list. And when you look at the household size, we are not finding an exorbitant amount of people who have children or who would qualify for those 3 bedrooms, or in some cases even 2 bedrooms. That said, where we can, we're partnering with those transitional housing units, even if they're not here, but maybe they're bordering our areas, who may serve families. We also work really closely with supportive services for veteran families and all of our grantees who may be identifying families who they've served in rapid rehousing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Parisa. Any other questions at this time? Eric?
I do. I have a few questions. This is going back in the presentation to the discussion of the town center. I appreciate the presentation might have answered some of these questions, but I couldn't read it quite quickly enough. Is there a detailed plan, and if so, can we see it, that sets forth the precise uses that are contemplated for Building 13 and who they aim to provide services to? In other words, campus residents or non-resident veterans, and what the kind of general access looks like in terms of who, like I said, who these serve, who will be provided services in that kind of town hall center, and what those services will be, and broken down preferably by square foot and like location within the building. And I'd also like to better understand, I don't have a detailed understanding of how the housing is financed, but I have a general conceptual understanding, and that all makes sense to me. I'd like to understand on a more detailed basis the financials for the town center. In other words, kind of a sources and uses, where the dollars for construction are coming from and in what amounts, and how those amounts are either repaid or vest over time. And then after construction, an idea on kind of the P&L, in other words, what income comes into the principal developer over time, and how that income will be utilized, and whether there are any other stakeholders that need to contribute to operating costs going forward to the various uses within the town center. I think that overall, kind of, I guess, P&L and costs, sources and uses for that town center concept building. So 300, I guess, and 13, or at least 13. And then I also know that it has been a topic, so I'm now moving on to question 2. And these all.
Karen, do you want us to respond to your first question? Because I wrote a few notes down, and I think Tess is going to have some really valuable
Sure.
here with the US Feds team. I wrote down some notes. You were asking about the square footage of the community amenity spaces, locations within buildings, and who's served. So if we could pull up that slide again, I think it would be a helpful visual if Tess is, sorry to put you on. But let's speak broadly. Let's speak from a macro level and then delve into building by building. And that's where Tess can speak more. The idea here with the town center is that these buildings will serve all veterans, both resident veterans of the campus and veterans from the greater community, who may be coming to campus, maybe coming to the hospital for an appointment, and then swing by to use some of these resources and amenities. I think in Sally and Andrew's deck from earlier, they actually highlighted this, that a lot of the visitors right now to just the Peer Resource Center are non-resident veterans. So hopefully that answers your first question. This is meant for all veterans, whether they live at West LAVA or not. In terms of the square footage and the locations within buildings, so 408 and 409 have finalized plans. Like I said, we're about to break ground. 13 does not have final architectural plans yet. So the idea here is that the ground floor of 408 and 409 have these community serving amenities. You know, in 409, it's the theaters or performing arts space, the maker space, community room for a VSO. For 408, it's a built out, bigger fitness center. It's a bigger peer resource center. It's, career and vocational training. There's an outdoor transit plaza. So we can show you those on architectural plans simply because we're about to break ground. But for 13, it's much more, it's kind of more of that entire building. And same with 300. They have very few residential units in 13 and 300. Their primary focus really is on these amenity spaces. So let me pause there. I think we answered a few of your questions, and then I'll hand it off to Tess if she wants to give a little more color on 13 and 300 specifically.
Sure. So anything that you see on the map, you can note is proposed. It's been proposed. So it's not set in stone, specifically building 13. So we're still actively working with VA to determine, what services, community serving amenities will be included in building 13. This is the aspiration that has existed since the community plan was included with the last master plan. So there's a lot more color in those pages if you're interested in learning more about what's been proposed here, including starting from that vision of the different community serving amenities that has been altered and shaped, of course, with further veteran input, and continues to be developed alongside VA.
Sarah,
Okay,
did that answer your questions?
It's helpful. Is there a source for us to look at the, I see the uses broken out in 408 and 409, but to get a sense of the space.
Yeah, we can share architect. I don't know how to transmit information with you guys, but we're happy to share our floor plan for the ground floor for 408 and for 409, since again, those are fully baked with the community amenity spaces. We are building them out as a warm shell. At this point, we're still in the process of selecting who the operators will be for those spaces, how they get built out. One important question that you brought up that we didn't yet answer is you asked, what is our income from these spaces? Currently, we're veterans to come and use the vocational center or the fitness center. So it's part of our challenge, part of our work right now is to figure out how to make them operate, be it with a nonprofit partner or with the VA, so that we're not coming out of pocket and we're not receiving an income. It's just meant to be a self operation in each of these amenity spaces.
If I might, the supportive service spaces, sources and uses, and multi-use space sources and uses also contemplate philanthropic investment because there isn't always available funding for those spaces themselves. And so I think our vision is to draw down available funding where possible, including around all the housing spaces that make up that town center, and then to utilize community support in order to build toward our vision.
Okay, and that's great on the construction side of things. I guess where I'm also thinking is on an ongoing basis to make sure that at some time in the future we don't end up with a shortfall on operating expenses for those spaces. I guess I'd like to kind of understand what is envisioned, to make sure that what we're building is sustainable over time financially.
I can say we're actively talking about this very issue at the VA right now about the long-term cost of maintaining and operating these spaces. So that's something we're actively discussing with them. So I don't know that we've reached a full resolution yet, but you're hitting on a really important topic, Kara. So hopefully next time we convene, we'll have a better answer, more clear and definitive answer for you on that.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. And then I know that it has been a topic of discussion with this board, and I certainly don't want to bring up a sore topic, but I believe that the board has expressed some concern about the legislative authority to allow the town center to be developed under the EUL, the Leasing Act EUL authority. Is that, I guess, could I get a kind of an update on that topic? Because I don't know the kind of resolution on it.
I'll
We'll
defer
defer
to
to our
VA
VA
to comment
partners.
on that. Yeah, that's a question for VA.
This is Jay. Is Brett still on? I know Mr. Sims. I think this is a OAM question. We can also table it and get a response.
I'm on Chi. So I would say this is Brett Sims. The short answer is yes, it was responded to. It was done in consultation with General Counsel. And the short answer is there's a requirement in West LA Leasing Act that this be supportive housing. You cannot have housing without supportive services. All of what you heard Parissa and the team just talk about are supportive services that goes along with the housing. So it is allowable both under the West LA Leasing Act and the broader EUL authority. Keep in mind that the West LA Leasing Act is more restrictive than the broader EUL authority. The broader EUL authority is not limited to housing. It can be many different things, but at West LA, it is specific for supportive housing. But even with that limitation, our consultation with General Counsel is the town center in these mixed use buildings, including building 300 that we talked about, is allowable under the EUL authority.
Thank you, Brett.
Does that answer your questions, Kara?
That does. I'm sorry, I wrote some as we went along, so let me just make sure I've opened each one up for response. Okay. Yeah, I think that does. And then I would just say, I know for myself at the next meeting, I will be looking for a little bit more color on the topic we discussed. And Prisa, I appreciate the response that it's in process, and just want to flag that as something that we'll follow up on at the next meeting about the finances.
Oh, Dr. Nwachukwu?
Yes, thank you. I actually just have, I wanted to make sure that I understand, and maybe this is for Parissa, in regards to, is it the PD's responsibility ongoing for, the service maintenance over time? Or is that set to expire within a certain time frame? Meaning you were talking about how there's a lot of discussions around trying to find the funding to make sure that the spaces are maintained ongoing. So can you just clarify for the board so we can understand what the terms are around the responsibility there?
Sure, yeah, and my colleagues feel free to chime in. Patricia, the buildings that we're building out are meant to stand here for decades, and these amenity spaces that we're building out are also meant to serve veterans. So long as the building is there and we are here as the PD team, we will continue to maintain and operate these spaces. Again, our vision here is really to be doing this in collaboration with private sector funding partners and with the VA, philanthropic partners, and of course, people like yourselves who are helping us think through the uses for the spaces. So if you're asking, is there an expiration date? I guess I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. Are you asking if there's an end date? We're only providing services through 2029? No.
So you're going to be, for the life of the agreement, you will be responsible for the services and the upkeep of all of the centers, et cetera, including the funding for that.
We are invested in the implementation of the master plan and carrying this vision forward for decades to come. I mean, we already have multiple buildings that are completed, and we're not leaving the campus. So the short answer to your question is no, we don't have an end date. So long as we have the capacity and the ability and the funding to continue to operate these spaces, again, with partnerships with the VA and other funding sources, we will be here.
And they're carefully planned. I think that's another piece of it. I really wanted to emphasize the strength of the partnerships of, those who might be coming into spaces who are being actively vetted for stability and, background in their financials, in addition to the VA services that will also operate in the spaces, which VA has been around since the 1930s. So I anticipate it will be in existence long after I'm gone. But yes, there is long-term planning going on to support and sustain these services, including philanthropically, as Lainey noted.
I think one thing to note is that it is unprecedented to operate supportive housing development for 3,000 people on a VA medical center campus. And so what we all committed to together was figuring out how to find the resources to get it done. I think the $1 billion that VA, federal government, state governments, and private sector have leveraged together reflect that work. And now our task is to figure out, once we've built it, how to maintain it. We have a $25 million operating endowment projected as part of the campaign, so that generates revenue long-term. And I think we feel very hopeful and confident that our partners will also invest, as they have to date, to figure out how to get it done together.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure that was clearly stated and I understood that. Okay.
Mr. Zenner?
Yeah, thanks, DFO. So the 3,000 units that you mentioned, is that all permanent supportive housing? What does that breakdown consist of?
I shouldn't have said that. I think in the end, 3,000 is a number that's projected across the campus, but I should have referenced 1,200 plus minimum units. Thanks for correcting me.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I'll just follow up with I'm really concerned if we're looking at 3,000 units of permanent supportive housing, we really need to look to diversify the portfolio. I think we've all kind of been saying that on the committee, at least from what I've heard. And I just want to flag that publicly because that's 3,000 units of permanent supportive housing on that campus is a really, really bad idea. And I'll
Please
stop.
forgive me. I did misspeak and I want to flag that as well, Jim. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I did misspeak and it is 1,200. Sorry for the confusion.
Thank you, everyone.
I
Is
think you
there,
meant 3,000 veteran residents.
I did. I apologize. Sometimes we get things wrong.
thanks for the clarification. I just want to check in with the board to see if there's any other questions before we take a short break. Don't see any hands. I want to thank the principal developers. I think, Dr. Davis, did you have some comment?
Just one comment, because everybody has different backgrounds on this. For the PDs, when you refer to work with the VA, that's a very broad reference. So it would be helpful if you say, we're working with this office at GLA, we're working at VA headquarters with OAEM, we're working with, because just VA doesn't really mean anything. So I appreciate that specificity. And again, every good question you have will integrate and inform into whatever action plans comes out of responding to the executive order.
Thank you, ma'am. I want to thank the GLA team and principal developer team for making time for us and answering questions. I think we all learned a lot, and it's been a few hours, so I'd like to take about a 13-minute break. So let everyone, if we can re-adjourn at 1 o'clock, we'll take a break for everyone until then. We'll be back see you back at 1.